Hello and welcome again to Monster Island Radio. I'm Ben, and as always, I'm joined by the ever earnest
Graham. How you doing? No, that's not a very earnest. Hello. I'm a normal person
really
from a normal, kind of perspective, and yeah. Hello.
Hello. Okay, so today we're back and we're talking about the newest film in the MonsterVerse. We're talking about Godzilla X Kong: The New Empire, or is it Cross Kong?
In the introduction at the screening, the lady just said Godzilla Kong.
Okay.
So there's yet another way you could X cross nothing. I think New Empire is what I'm going to be calling it.
Oh yeah, New Empire is actually quite a good one. Okay, let's call it the New Empire. So yeah, we're talking about the New Empire. So this is the fifth and latest entry into the legendary MonsterVerse. Directed by Adam Wingard, who directed the previous installment in the MonsterVerse, Godzilla vs. Kong. So just a warning to everyone listening, this is going to be full spoilers. So if you haven't seen it yet,
go and see it.
Yeah, go see it and listen to it afterwards. So, summary. Okay, so catching up with the gang from the previous installment, Godzilla vs. Kong, we opened with Kong evidently still living in the Hollow Earth and being monitored by Monarch, namely by Dr. Eileen Andrews and Trapper, while on the surface, Godzilla remains fighting Titans. In Rome, we see Godzilla fight and kill a giant spider crab-like Titan called Scylla, and then he has a cozy little sleep in the Colosseum. We also see Gia, the last remaining member of the Iwi culture from Skull Island, struggling to adjust to life as a school student in Barbados, while also seemingly having telepathic visions of these triangular signals coming from the Hollow Earth. Down in the Hollow Earth, Kong discovers a sinkhole that leads him to a yet uncharted territory and discovers other giant apes. So he's not alone after all. After a brief battle with them, he's then guided by a young ape called Suko, who leads him to what is ostensibly a slave camp of other apes, overseen by a bigger ape called Scar King. Kong tries to free the enslaved apes by battling Scar King, but doesn't quite succeed as Scar unleashes an ice titan called Shimo, over whom he has control with the power of some magic ice crystal thing. Whatever it is. I wasn't sure if it was like a spine off of Shimo.
It seems like it's supposed to be a part of them, the creature, and somehow he is able to wield it to control them. But the creature's also chained up a lot of the time as well, so that's a part of control as well.
Yes, true. Meanwhile, Gia's adoptive mother, Dr. Andrews, isn't satisfied by Monarch's deductions of what the signals might be and reaches out to Bernie Hayes, the Titan Truth podcaster / blogger from Godzilla vs. Kong, as she believes he can make deductions that others can't. He convinced Dr. Andrews to take him to the Hollow Earth along with Trapper and Gia, where they discover that the signals are a distress call from something down there, and it's calling to Gia. There they encounter a previously undiscovered civilization of Iwi people who reside in the Hollow Earth and can communicate telepathically. It becomes evident that the signals that were coming from the Hollow Earth were coming from the civilization, and the signals resembled the pyramid-like architecture where they reside. Andrews reveals a prophecy from the ancient carvings that Scar King once tried to rule the surface, but was contained by Godzilla, and that Shimo was responsible for the last ice age on the surface. We also learn that the Iwi foretold the arrival of Gia, who would then awaken Mothra to help Godzilla and Kong in the upcoming fight to contain Scar King once again.
It's getting complicated now.
Yeah, it's getting very complicated. This was a difficult one to write, and it was difficult to watch. So, back on the surface, Godzilla has been preparing for a battle after sensing the distress call, and takes on a titan by the name of Tiamat, killing her and absorbing her radiation in a bid to power up for what's coming. Kong returns to the surface via a portal to Cairo to encourage Godzilla to help him stop Scar King, but there's a bit of a misunderstanding, and Godzilla tries to kill Kong once again. Gia awakens Mothra, who then intervenes in the battle between Kong and Godzilla and forces them to play nice. They then return to the Hollow Earth, where Scar King and Shimo are attempting to get to the surface. They fight. They end up on a beach in Rio, where Scar King orders Shimo to begin another ice age. Zuko destroys the crystal that Scar King was using to control Shimo, thus freeing her, and then allowing her to wreak her revenge by freezing Scar King, who is then smashed to pieces by Kong.
A classic sort of icy death.
Yes, exactly.
Frozen and then smashed.
Very cartoony.
Yeah, there's a few movies where that happens, isn't there? Just reminiscing about all the times I've seen that.
Yeah. Godzilla then uses his juiced up atomic breath to clear the effects away of the second ice age, and then everyone lives happily ever after.
For now.
And everyone except Scar King.
Well, yeah, he was a bit of a troublesome type.
Yeah. So before we get into this, we're going to get absolutely cooked for this. So we have not seen Godzilla -1.
We've also not seen the Monarch TV show. Exactly.
So if people are hoping we'd draw some comparisons between either of those, you're plumb out of luck, because we just haven't been able.
I can't do it.
We can't do it.
Can't do it.
Yeah, we haven't been able to do it. So,
but also, even though this is a spoiler review for New Empire, we're not going to spoil the Monarch TV show or -1 because we haven't seen them. So listen at your discretion.
Yeah, absolutely. So before seeing this, we both avoided all trailers. I think we saw the first teaser last year.
But they sort of teased Scar King, with Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was still called just Godzilla X Kong at that time.
It was either that or Godzilla and Kong, right?
Oh, it was called Godzilla and Kong for a bit, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was back in those days. So since then, we've avoided everything just because we wanted to go into this clean, basically.
Yeah.
So, we just avoided everything. So Warner Brothers Discovery graciously granted us tickets to the preview, which you folks might have already seen because we posted it on our Instagram. So we're very lucky there. And then after the screening, we purposely just avoided talking about this film so we can kind of get the opinions fresh here now. So just to jump in, I really did enjoy it. I really enjoyed myself, but that's with some big caveats.
Right.
Which I'll get into. And I just have this feeling you might feel the same as me. Maybe not for the same reasons, I don't know. But you tell me. What was your prevailing feeling walking away from the screening?
Yeah, it was similar. That I really enjoyed my time with it. I think it was a lot of fun. I noticed there's obvious differences in the way they've approached this one compared to the previous one. Versus is about a versus showdown, and that takes center stage as it should in that film, and it benefits this movie that it is a bit different in terms of structure and the things they focus on. But yeah, I enjoyed it, but it was not as good as Versus, I don't think. But there's quite a distance between the two in terms of how entertaining I found them. I think Versus was a lot better than this, and this was a nice change of pace. But that's that's probably the most I could give it. Yeah,
that's basically where I'm at with it as well.
Some elements of it are stronger. I would actually say I liked the human element in this a great deal more than a lot of other movies we've watched in the Godzilla, pantheon. Yeah. I think the actors do a great job, and even though we know and they know that they're only there to get us from scene to scene, they actually, do quite a bit with it, humorously, emotionally. I think that works.
Yeah.
But the action is not on the same level as Versus, and I don't think the story, the story is good because they're sort of saying it's about Kong and finding other Kongs.
Yeah. I feel like this might be my biggest problem with it is that this is another Kong movie featuring Godzilla.
Yes, exactly.
And that's disappointing to me. That is I really enjoyed it for what it is, but it's not a Godzilla movie. It's a Kong movie.
Totally.
And it felt like at points it felt like Planet of the Apes crossed with Lord of the Rings.
Yes, the Planet of the Apes. I don't know if you've seen the modern Planet of the Apes movies. But
yes, I haven't seen the final one. I've seen the first two of the new trilogy, but yeah.
The influences from that series on this particular movie are really apparent, just because it's like
almost indistinguishable, I think.
Exactly. Yeah, you get a group of apes together who don't speak any discernible language, and they obviously communicate non-verbally for a bit, and we watch and we can understand it. And it's like, well, you've taken a lot of that from the Planet of the Apes series, whereas Planet of the Apes movies, I like them. I don't think they're like masterpieces, but they definitely do this kind of thing better, because it's like that's their thing, especially into the point where we start getting like subtitles and stuff on screen in those movies. So yeah, it felt very derivative in that sense, and like you, I felt consciously that Godzilla was very much like outside of the story. Like obviously,
it felt like kind of three different things going on. There was Kong side of things and the human side of things. They did cross over, but for a huge chunks of it, they were completely separate, and it felt like two completely different things going on. And then you had the Godzilla side of things, which was just, even less than, that was kind of like third billing, really.
Yeah, I think the way they've done it is that the humans go into the Hollow Earth because they obviously like are interested in what Kong's doing, and they follow Kong down there, but they become unaware of what Kong is actually up to. They don't know where he is or what experiences he's having. However, they do have intel on what Godzilla is doing, so there's sort of a through line of like Kong's behavior is a mystery. We see it as an audience, but to the humans, they don't know. But the humans do know about Godzilla, so like they do sort of attach through this sort of dramatic sort of tension there, like what we know and what they know, and that's the way they link the scenes together. But yeah, even though Godzilla does get a few things to do, and I liked the idea that he absorbs this energy and then the look changes a bit. That was cool, and we can get into that. It just felt like he was outside. Literally, most of the film takes place in the Hollow Earth, where Kong and the human team are, and Godzilla is just like up on the surface, kind of absorbing energy for most of the film.
His entire bit inside of the Hollow Earth was just at that entrance, and then he back out again. Yeah, so it's like it was very strange, and it gave this completely different feeling from all the previous movies, which you could say is a good thing. Like you're saying, it is a different kind of movie, so it's like, cool that they're doing something new like that, but then you're sacrificing what you go and see Godzilla for.
I feel like Toho, this is purely my opinion, but I feel like Toho have stipulated that Godzilla's name needs to be first in the title.
Absolutely. That is 100% what's going on. Because I feel like they don't actually, not Toho, like Legendary, they don't really know what to do with Godzilla. Because I remember thinking in Godzilla vs. Kong, he felt very secondary, but now, like I said, he feels like third tertiary this time. Yeah, just stuck on the outskirts.
Yeah, I guess we're coming to it as Godzilla fans more than Kong fans, but we have to accept that MonsterVerse is like diversifying a little bit, or trying to, be Kong, I suppose.
That's what I wonder, whether that's where they're going, whether it's going to end up being a Kong series.
We kind of know that the Toho deal came to an end, didn't it, after Versus, and they've had to kind of renew it and work with Toho again to get this movie to happen.
So like it would kind of make sense to put your eggs in the Kong basket, right?
Exactly. If it comes to a point where Warner want to make a MonsterVerse movie and suddenly Godzilla is just not available that week, they don't have to worry about that, because they've made Kong the star, and I get that.
And they've got their own kaiju that they've introduced as well, so they've certainly got a library of their own monsters.
It does seem that they want to introduce more than use old ones. They've done the Ghidorah thing. They could obviously bring in stuff like Anguirus and Destroyer. But to go back to overall thoughts, I think the really positive thing about this movie, regardless of whether it's better or worse than previous entries, is that they obviously did MonsterVerse. They got to the Versus thing. We had that. That's a really great movie, I think, and you agree. And now they seem conscious that they have to adapt a little bit. They've got to fill that Hollow Earth, literally and figuratively, with things that are interesting. And they've made an attempt here to tell an actual story with characters, like with the Gia stuff, finding this tribe. It's like, well, where do you go from here? Now you've done the big fight. Like, what's next? It's like, if they want to do another movie after this, or maybe like another handful of movies after this, they kind of do need to stop a second, slow the movie down, spend a lot of time on story. And it does, like a lot of the movie is building to this final fight. It's a shame the final fight is not, it's obviously very predictable, and you sort of don't get the level of action is not choreographed, or it's not, the cinematography is not as good as Versus, I don't think. So the build-up is not really worth it, but I do appreciate that they sat down and thought, we need to tell a story here. And whether that story is good or bad, I really think they've made the right choice in what they've aimed for.
It feels a bit like they've kind of hit the reset button. Because they've kind of ignored a lot of stuff, little bits that were set up in like King of the Monsters, for example, like with the Shobijin twins. And
yes, they've sort of retconned.
Like they're kind of like, okay, yeah, we did that. You know, you had that Houston Brooks guy. Was it Houston Brooks? He was the guy that came up with the Hollow Earth theory, and you know, there's all of that, and they've kind of gone, yeah, okay, we're done. Now we're doing this, and it feels like, it feels almost like a reboot in a way. Like it feels like it's a Wingard universe now, rather than a MonsterVerse like we had previously. Yeah, but like you say, it's probably a smart move to be like, okay, yeah, we've, like you say, exactly like you're saying, you know, to actually, if we're going to do this, let's do it right.
It's very much like, the MonsterVerse is miniature compared to MCU in terms of how many movies there are. But if you think of Godzilla vs. Kong as the end game, well, we are at a reset point, aren't we?
Yes,
we've got to start a new arc, and I think if you're willing to accept that Godzilla and Kong are pre-existing entities, you can watch Godzilla vs. Kong as the first movie even, and then just go straight into New Empire. They work as a two-parter, effectively. Exactly. They're not that complicated. That's the joy of it, I think.
Yeah.
I've seen some summaries of some mainstream reviews from film critics, and it's not done that well, but I think there's a lot of cynicism attached to movies like this where, you know, quote-unquote real film critics often sort of like to dump on this sort of stuff because it is so throwaway. But to me, the throwawayness is sort of what I'm there for. Like, I want something a bit more heady that's mainstream. I can watch Dune. Like, that just came out, right? And if I want to turn my brain off and see some action, I'm hoping I'm going to get that from the Kong series.
Yeah.
I don't think that the reviews to it have necessarily been particularly fair. And I think our criticisms of it are much more from a fan's perspective. We're not saying this is like a bad film at all. I very much enjoyed it. Would say, oh yeah, go see it. If you like the Versus, go see this one. But it's not the same level of event as Versus. You know, I've watched Versus several times since. I don't know that I would sit and rewatch this, you know, in a hurry.
I actually felt opposite. I feel like I could rewatch this one more than any of the others.
Almost just start it again straight after.
Yeah. Because there was just, I suppose because there was so much going on, it's actually kind of hard to keep up. So I feel like rewatching it would have a great deal of value to me.
I think we might have a different view on this, whereas I get the impression, correct me if I'm wrong, but like you want to get a handle on the story details a second time through. Whereas I feel like I've kind of got the story, but I want to rewatch the action sequences because I felt like just the shot selection was not great, and a lot of it's very tightly framed. There's not very many wides in the action sequences, so I don't really know where characters are into relation to each other, compared to like Versus, where I think the airship carrier, what they call it, what they call those boats that carry airplanes,
aircraft carrier.
The aircraft carrier fight in Versus is, like, to me, if you want to just look at like good CGI in movies, it's one of the best uses of CGI there's ever been. It's so well done. And the climactic fight in New Empire is like, it's just okay. It's not even like, you know, it's fine. So that I would watch it again to be like,
it's quite scrappy.
Yeah, it just doesn't. Yeah, it's not very creative with its shot selection, as I say. So I would watch it again.
Yeah.
And even on a TV, I would get a different experience from it, just to see, like, you know, is it a bit easier to follow? Now I'm not sort of, you know, trying to take it all in at once. I've got a bit of distance from it. Should also say that we saw this in IMAX, which was its own experience of, you know, that was really good, I thought.
Yeah, that was really good.
There's a shot right at the beginning. I think it might even be the first proper shot of the movie where they're in the Hollow Earth, and obviously in the Hollow Earth, like, you know, the landscapes. It goes all around. You know, you've got mountains on the top, you've got mountains on the bottom, and the camera's like moving through Hollow Earth, establishing the environment, and it's turning as we go through. And I've been to IMAX before, but not for a while. It really took me back how much I felt like I was actually turning in my chair. As the camera was turning. Did you feel the same? I was like, oh my God, I've just got vertigo from this.
I mean, I was going to talk about this later when we were talking about the visual effects and stuff like that. But I mean, yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. It's like, I felt dizzy and I was like, oh shit. And I was like, I hope it doesn't do that again, but it was still kind of doing it. And I do feel like maybe that's an IMAX thing. Like you said, I don't know how that's going to work on a TV, really.
When I saw Prometheus in IMAX donkeys years ago, whenever that came out, and there were some shots in that where it's like, you really feel like you're looking into an environment, and the IMAX framing on the wide shots on this was like, this is great. You really feel like when Kong's like looking over a cliff into a sinkhole, you feel like you're looking down, and it wasn't like it was 3D or anything. It's just big screen.
Yeah.
That was great, yeah. IMAX experience was definitely worth it.
I feel that was clever direction to me, because it's like, how are you going to simulate that feeling of being in a hollow earth where everything's topsy-turvy and the ground is in front of you and above you, and it's like, how do you achieve that feeling? And it's exactly like that, and that was remarkably well done. A great intro to the movie, really, really
it
good.
was. But I will say, perhaps I've mentioned this on a previous episode or not, I don't know, but I was excited when the Hollow Earth was introduced that there is low gravity in there. But when they do the low gravity fighting in this movie, didn't really live up to my hope of like, we're going to get like a 0G.
Okay, we'll get onto the fights later then.
Yeah, so it's that thing, like the direction of just like, this is like a really beautiful environment, and look at the way the camera's moving, and we really feel like we're in a place. And then when the fight scenes start, that sort of falls away and it becomes very sort of visually noisy and not particularly graceful. And I was like, that's a shame, because that opening shot really impressed me and doesn't really return at any particular point when the action's going on. Yeah.
Going back to the pacing, I suppose you kind of touched on it, but I mean, you followed what was going on and you weren't too concerned with the smaller details.
No, I think it was,
I feel like there was so much like kind of story to tell. It had kind of like it was just like one thing after another really quickly. Like, it in some ways it was kind of good because it didn't really slow down at all, but it also meant I couldn't really catch my breath at any point. So in some ways that's kind of good because like there's never a point where I was bored at all.
No.
But then I just struggled to digest everything. Like so you're like, here's Zuko, here's Scar King, Gia's the chosen one, here's Shimo, Gia's on a pyramid, here's Mothra, they've got to turn off the gravity, and I was like, why are they doing this? And it's like, if you miss a sentence, you might miss what it is they're actually doing. And like, I really struggled because like, exactly like you're saying, I just want to get it all right in my head. And when when I miss something, I feel frustrated.
We've definitely talked about this before on other episodes where I've said when a movie's a little bit lacking, it can start to feel more complicated than it is because you're looking for like a bit of depth between the lines. It's like, well, actually, maybe if there isn't a depth there, you're spending mental energy looking for stuff that you're never going to actually find. And I don't blame you for feeling a bit like, there's a lot going on here, because I had that feeling too, but not to the same extent. I mean, to me, the pacing was fine, but I was very conscious at the middle point of the movie. I was like, they are going to spend the whole movie building up to basically one big fight scene, because there is a few scuffles, which are fun, but it's not like Versus. I don't want to keep comparing it the whole time, but with Versus, it's like you get some tentpole moments where it's like, I'm satiated now. I've seen some fighting. And I'm always like that when I watch these Godzilla movies. To me, that was the only thing. I would like you. I did not feel bored at any point, but I became very conscious, like, when are we going to get to the fireworks factory feeling? So that was my sort of mode of like, I like the story and the characters are funny and quirky and, I like the visuals and they're doing cool stuff. But I was like tapping my watch like, it's a shame we're only going to get one fight scene. Hope it's good when we get there. But there is a lot going on. I do appreciate the points where they stop the movie effectively to explain a thing. I don't mind that in this style of film.
Very exposition heavy.
It's like, Godzilla's going to eat this lizard. Let's tell you exactly that's going to happen. We found a little cave that literally explains the story. Let's tell you the story. And I'm like, I don't mind that. I'm so game for it. Yeah, I mean, it's there in service of getting monsters to fight, isn't it, really? Which is what you're there for. So I don't think that's worth complaining about, because that's why you're there. I'm just coming at it from a critical angle, because I think, what did and didn't work, and I feel like there's certain things that just didn't work for me. Again, this is a bit of a trademark thing with us, but like I sound very down on things, but that's not the case at all. I really, really, really did enjoy this, but I don't think I'd be, we wouldn't be doing our job, so to speak, if we weren't, picking at the scabs here. Okay, let's talk a bit about the characters. So we had Dr. Eileen Andrews,
played by Rebecca Hall. So she was in Godzilla vs. Kong. She wasn't it. Yeah, that was the only one, wasn't it? Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, she's smart. She's kind of the virtuous character, and she was the exposition machine for this movie.
Yeah, they give her some motherly stuff, which some people may feel is a bit sort of trite, given that she's the female lead, and they just make her like the mum. But she actually does a pretty good job with that.
Oh, I never thought of that.
I'm only thinking about it just now. I didn't think about it when I was watching it. But yeah, they do a good job in those scenes. I think that that worked to an extent. It's actually maybe a little bit better in the previous movie, but they've taken the characters forward. They're saying, "Oh, Gia's a bit older. Gia's got her own agency now. How does Eileen deal with it?" And they do actually spend some time on that, and it seems to work, I think.
Yeah, I liked that because it gave the Gia character more of a pedestal, and which I was so pleased. I didn't know she was going to be in it. So when she was there, I was really stoked because I think she outshone everyone else in this movie. So that she's played by Kaylee Hottle. Great actor, terrific. So seeing more of her was great. And I hope if there are going to be more, she's going to be. I feel like she's got to be there in any future ones, right? She seems actually integral to, the lore of the MonsterVerse. So
yeah, I don't feel like they can't do a chosen one storyline in one movie and then not have her back.
Yeah, exactly.
To do some chosen one stuff. So
yeah, exactly. So yeah, super pleased with that. And then we had the character Bernie Hayes, played by Brian Tyree Henry, the conspiracy nut from Godzilla vs. Kong. I like him. I don't know how you feel about him, but I like his character, and I was really pleased to see him again. And I feel like he's needed. Like, you need a bit of it's like fun levity.
It's the self-aware element of the movie. The comic relief is just like, yeah, we know this is silly, and we're going to be silly. And it's
that's enjoyable to me.
He grated on me a little bit in the previous one. I don't think the humour worked as well there, where it's like, he's a nutter, and you could make an argument socially, like, should we be turning conspiracy theorists into heroes in movies? I don't know. But that's, maybe a bit...
Especially in this day and age.
Yeah, he works better in this one. He's more likeable, and they take the character forward. They actually respond to the things that happened in the previous films. How does he feel about it? He develops as a character, which you could say, is an improvement on the previous film even. So, yeah, I liked him quite a bit more. And Trapper as well. I would
really like to see more of Bernie and Gia interacting.
Oh, right.
Because I don't think they interacted at all, from what I remember.
Well, they made a thing of it, really, didn't they? That Eileen and Bernie literally never had any screen time in the previous film. And they make a point of saying,
contrive a reason to get them together. Yeah.
But I like that we get to see the same characters again, but they've accidentally given themselves like something new to do because these two never spoke. It's like,
yeah. And that's where I feel like there was like a reset. They're like, okay, well, we want these characters again. Let's pull them together for some reason. And this was like the new building blocks wherever they're going to go. So if there is going to be another, I'd like to see both of them back, and I'd like to see them interacting. I think that could be good because I feel like Gia has a level of maturity that Bernie doesn't, and I can see that being, fun on screen. So, and like you said, we've got Trapper, played by Dan Stevens. He's colourful, he's annoying, but he's likable, and he's basically the replacement for Lind from Godzilla vs. Kong, as far as I could discern. He was just like, male,
like a white man insert. You mean?
Yeah, exactly.
He's fine. When he first turned up, I was like, is he going to be irritating? Because the introduction of this character is deliberately obnoxious, but also they spent some time on that, showing you like at the scale of Kong compared to a person, which I think is probably quite necessary. So it had a function,
and pretty much the only time it happened in this movie.
Yes. But yeah, I actually was like, I actually quite like this character. He's not quite as cliche as I was expecting. He's sort of this, earthy, hippie type veterinarian character who you've probably seen a million times, but like actually, it's quite likable, and he seems very sort of, a
bit deeper than I was going to give him credit for. Because I thought it was going to be surface level kind of hippie thing, but he actually had some heart.
They did a good job of it. And that's the thing I was saying before, like these actors obviously know, like they're in this movie for one reason and one reason only, which is basically to fill space between action scenes. And given that is so obviously the case, I think these guys, the main four, including Gia, they deserve a lot of credit. They really do a good job. Writing's good. They've elevated that writing.
Yeah.
So yeah, no complaints about them at all.
No, not at all. I feel like as a cast, we've got a firm footing with all these guys.
Yeah, I'm sure they could do the same thing again, like where maybe the next movie you keep some, you lose some, just like they've done. I think that's one of the things that's refreshing about MonsterVerse is that they've slowly kind of have evolved the cast of humans, whereas the monsters remain the staple. So I think that makes it easier to see the monsters as the true stars. I like that.
That's true.
If all of the main 4 came back again, and the next one I'd be like, yeah, cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd like to see that, to be honest. Because I also read that people were like, oh yeah, the humans are there and it sucked, was the overall feeling. But I was like, it didn't suck. Exactly like you said, they fill a role, but they do it well, and they're enjoyable. So I'm not sure where people are coming from with that.
Maybe if you've only seen a couple of Godzilla movies in your life and you don't know how much sludge we've trudged through on bad human stories, this might appear like, oh, this is a bit boring, but honestly, this is one of the best to ever do it in that regard.
Yeah, easily.
Where I was actually like, oh, I know I'm sort of being tethered along for a climactic fight scene here, but I'm not bored. These actors I like, and I like the little jokes and the little character moments, and I can't say more than that. It was good. I like that.
Yeah, exactly. And a couple of other casts I want to mention is the Iwi Queen. So I don't know what her character name is other than Iwi Queen, so we'll just call her that. Played by Fala Chen. I'm not sure how to say her name. I've not seen her in anything else, but she's in that Marvel movie, right?
That Marvel movie.
What's it called?
Hold on, let me find out, because I have no clue what you're talking about.
Isn't she?
I kind of dropped off the Marvel stuff. She is in Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, and if I'm correct, her role is non-speaking. She's in a flashback scene at the beginning of the movie, so she's not in it much, if I'm correct in my memory. And her role in this is non-speaking, so...
Interesting.
Is she an insert for the Chinese market? We'll let other people decide that. But it's entirely possible.
I hadn't considered that.
Yeah,
okay. Well, what I was going to say about her wasn't as cynical as that. But I really loved her design. It looked so cool.
I'll say this about, I don't want to leave that on the table without any context. But to me, if you want to insert something for the Chinese audience in order to make the movie better for that audience, I don't mind people doing it. I don't mind studios and producers doing that, so long as it is actually a functional, enjoyable part of the movie. You see these other films like your Independence Day 2, whatever they call it, where it's like, at least I did, as a Westerner watching it, I was like, I know this has actually been made for China. It feels like Hollywood has made a movie for China, and you're the one who's kind of been sort of hand-waved away. I don't want any audience to be hand-waved away, and I think, if you can put a good character in, and it makes the movie somewhat more enjoyable, perhaps, I don't know, for another market, I don't really mind that. We're talking about mainstream Hollywood cinema here, and Fala Chen as Iwa Queen, I haven't got a problem with it. If they put her there, I enjoyed her. It didn't detract from my enjoyment at all. I don't want people to feel like I'm sort of anti-Chinese cinema or anything. If it's done well, it's done well.
Got the Graham stamp of approval.
Yeah, you shill to that market, Hollywood. I don't mind in this context. There's other broader debates you could have about this, about the ethics of that. But in this context, it's pretty subtle, and it may just be that she's, a jobbing actor who happens to be non-speaking in every movie she's in for whatever reason.
But yeah, I really liked her design. I thought that was cool, so that's why I wanted to bring it up.
But lest we forget, Trevor from EastEnders turns up.
That was the next one I was going to say. So
I could sense it was going to be.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, Mikhail, the Monarch pilot. I guess that's what he is.
Alex Ferns.
So British viewers, you'll most likely remember him as Trevor from EastEnders, the wife beater who shoved Little Mo's face into a Christmas dinner.
Yeah.
You saw me look round at you when he came on screen.
This was very amusing.
And we both shared a little smile.
We don't want to sound like we're down on Alex Ferns, because he was actually incredible in EastEnders in the early 2000s. The entire country hated this man.
Literally.
And I think it brought domestic violence as a topic to the forefront for a bit, as soap operas, when they're at their best, that's what they do.
Yeah.
And he's a good actor. I last saw him in Chernobyl, the HBO series.
Oh, yeah.
Bollock naked for one scene. I was like, oh, that's that guy from EastEnders.
Wonderful.
And he's just great in this kind of role. And he adds like, a nice bit of like edge to the sort of like, on this hard, guy who's going to protect you in the Hollow Earth, and he gets gobbled up by like a weird tree creature, and it's like, it's fine. Yeah. It's fine. I also, just as an aside, I don't know if it's too early to say, but I liked the way the little weird Hollow Earth ship looked like a little Muto.
I wasn't sure if it was like a kind of like a Jaeger type thing, or I don't know what it was actually trying to look like, but yeah, a Muto actually is probably
I think it looked
closer.
like a Muto on purpose, to me. I thought that was a deliberate little like, remember that?
Yeah.
Remember there was other movies? Serious sort of movies, kind of a sort of serious movie?
Yeah,
we started doing these cartoons. Anyway, back to the cast, if there is any more.
That was basically it. But so Mikhail, Alex Ferns, I expected him to be in it more.
I was hoping you would be. I was
a little bit disappointed that he got killed off, because obviously, partly because we know who he is, from EastEnders. So
he's a genuinely charismatic screen presence, and they killed him off a little bit too early.
Maybe it was for the best, because we already had that in Godzilla vs. Kong with the what are they called? Walt Simmons' daughter. They already had that dynamic before, so I think maybe it'd just be retreading old ground to have that kind of thing again.
But she was actually like a villain though, and he could have been like.
I feel that's where I thought. Okay, maybe I should explain. That's where I thought they were going with that. Like that would be the tension in the group, and that would be the drama. But then they were like, no, we're not having that, and just plucked him out.
Assuming they would have taken that character in a different direction, I would have been like, yeah, you can stick around and be a bit like grumpy.
Yeah.
And maybe get crushed by a fist later on, or do something heroic and save somebody and then die in the process, sort of Skull Island version,
Yeah.
But I don't know. But yeah, we liked him because we were like, oh, it's that guy.
Yeah.
He used to do nasty things on TV.
That's basically it for the cast. I mean,
aside from our monster favourites, obviously, but that's different. Kettle of fish.
Our monster cast. So, we have Godzilla. So, like I said before, less and less of a character. I'm feeling less of a connection to him than I'd have ever felt before.
Perhaps we could do with a standalone Godzilla movie being made for the MonsterVerse.
It needs one. I feel like it needs one at this point.
Godzilla was in the Monarch TV show, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, maybe that's what we're missing. There we go. Okay, so maybe that's
Kurt Russell and Godzilla chilling out together. We haven't seen it yet.
Haven't seen it, so maybe that's filling the gap there. So maybe that's why I'm feeling a little disheartened about it.
We'll readdress these points of view when we've watched them on a TV show, which will no doubt be very soon.
Yeah, exactly. We had Mothra. Yay!
Surprise.
So it was annoyingly, I saw spoilers the day we went to go see it. And one of the spoilers was Mothra, and because I was disappointed that was spoiled for me.
Yeah, because it's one of your faves.
But then it also ramped up my excitement. So I was like, okay, I'm really looking forward to seeing her coming back. And I was very happy when she came on screen, when Gia summoned her, or whatever it is she did to get her to come back, to reawaken her from wherever she was. A big egg, maybe, not sure, didn't see it. It took my breath away for a second, and I was like, that's exactly the reaction I was hoping to get, and I got it. So I was very happy. It's great to see Mothra back. I was absolutely convinced after King of the Monsters that was it. There was going to be no more Mothra. I just felt like they didn't have faith in doing anything other than Godzilla. But that's where I feel like this film was really good. It's like they're happy to revisit some things like this. So. Yes, very happy. I was absolutely delighted with that. And I really liked, like I said, I was kind of like, they dismissed some of the King of the Monster stuff, like with the Shobijin and stuff like that, but they put Gia in that role to be the one that awakens Mothra,
They never say outright either that she's not connected to Shobijin. They never say the word Shobijin, but they don't, like, it's kind of...
They made a half-hearted point of it in King of the Monsters that it's going to be these twins in some way because they're twins, you know. And you know, I think it's probably for the best that they just ditched that and like, okay, Gia's the one, and absolutely the right choice, really. So
it's such a shame they didn't establish something in the previous film where it's like, oh, Gia had a sister and she didn't make it during all of the crises, and then if they went into the Hollow Earth and it's like, oh, I did survive, I've been down here, and we're Shobijin twins. But they obviously didn't plan it, you know, that far ahead. Yeah. That would have been nice. Because I do like the visual, like, oh yeah, keep it like classic. But like, as you say, we didn't even see Mothra in an egg or a cocoon or nothing. It was very much like, here she is.
Yeah.
But I'm glad, you know, it was fun. And I knew that you would really enjoy it. I was like, yeah, that's nice. Yeah. Why not? I don't. Go for it.
Yeah, exactly. So I admired them bringing this back. It was a great move.
I would argue that overall there is maybe too many monsters, though, dare I say. Is that sacrilege to say there might have been one too many monsters? Just because that last action scene was like, there's a lot going on here, and I'm not sure where anybody's at, or... Come on, like, you know, that kind of... less is more. There's a bit... I wouldn't say it was Spider-Man 3 issue, you know, but it was sort of in that... It was in that area. People know what I'm talking about. It was sort of like, we maybe one too many cooks in this kitchen, monster-wise.
Okay, so let's look at the list here. We've got Godzilla, Mothra, Kong, Shimo, Suko.
Which is Mini Kong.
Shimo's the ice titan. Yeah. Suko is the Mini Kong. Scar King, and then you got Scylla and Tiamat.
Plus a handful of miscellaneous Kong affiliates.
Oh, yeah, those as well, and whatever creatures are in the Hollow Earth. So it's littered. Yeah, you're right. It's a lot. It is a lot.
It is a lot.
I feel like if you are kind of au fait with the MonsterVerse, and maybe it wouldn't be quite as overwhelming. But yeah, actually thinking about it, if you're not aware of something, actually it would feel like a lot. It was a lot. You're right.
Yeah, it was to me, the thing that broke the camel's back is that Scar King has a enslaved ice creature, and I like the lore about it. Like, oh, this guy created the Ice Age and he controls it with a magic crystal. Like, that stuff is fun in itself, but to me it's like it diminishes Scar King a little bit. I know they want that to make they do that to show you him hurting this creature to make you dislike them. Okay, it's a bit of like a kick the dog trope if you want. But to me, I'm like, I would rather Scar King himself had some ability other than just being a nasty prick. I would, and visually it became one creature too many when you're cutting between lots of different punches and beams and spikes and, that sort of stuff. I was like, yeah, it's a little bit too much sauce.
Yeah, that's a fair point. For me, I felt like, it kind of served a dual purpose. So actually, no, maybe a triple purpose. I mean, you have two kind of, quadrupeds-ish fighting each other, and then two apes fighting each other. So there's that visual thing there. There's the element that you mentioned where it's like, oh, it makes him seem nasty because he's imprisoned someone. But then
for presumably tens of millions of years as well.
I guess so.
Take the lore at face value.
Yeah, exactly. And then the other purpose I feel like was that it showed actually how pathetic he really was, because without his crystal, without his whip, he was nothing, and he was gone.
Yeah,
seconds after, and I was like
shattered.
Yeah, literally. So I feel like that was kind of the point, is to actually make him seem really pathetic, and that worked for me. So
that's fair. Yeah, I mean, I think that that is what they probably intended, and that's what they've delivered. But to me, it's like I would prefer
from a visual standpoint when you're trying to follow something. Yeah, that's it's a lot to take in.
I mean, I don't want to go down the road of like, oh, we're theorizing our own kaijus as such. I mean, that's a topic we could really go into another time. But I wouldn't have even. I think Kong finding other apes does not necessarily mean that we need the villain to also be an ape.
Yeah, I didn't like the fact he was an ape. I feel like it should have been something else.
I would have had the Kongs imprisoned by a different kind of kaiju, maybe mix the ice powers with another creature. And again, I don't want to get into this like, I'm going to create my own kaiju, because we could create a kaiju episode if we wanted to. But I would have been like, 0G, let's have it be like, a rabbit or a hare that leaps and really makes use of jumping from
something
one place
agile
to another.
Yeah.
Or something agile, or even like a bird type thing. And if you want to make it like an ice creature, that would have been cool. Because it just becomes like Kong fights an ape, And I'm like,
that's why it felt like Planet of the Apes again.
Yeah, it just feels not uncreative at all, because I do think like the movie is creative, and I really, as I said in the beginning, I appreciate that they've put their heads down and thought, how can we embellish this so we can keep making movies, because that feels like what they're trying to do. But yeah, it's like, it doesn't have to be another rape. It's just not as interesting as it could have been. I think ultimately, especially when they teased Scar King in that very, very early, Godzilla and Kong teaser, and we see the silhouette of this creature. From that point, we could see, it's going to be some sort of ape. And I was like, well, maybe it would be really cool, or maybe like, it could have been anything. But I was just like, if it's another ape, I'm not going to be that bothered. And yeah, in the end, it is very much like, yeah, there's another ape, and they defeat him as you expect he would. It's like, yeah, they could have introduced something new visually there, or make it like an ice ape, because even that would have been like, this guy's icy, not just like he has an ice pet. Because I totally what you're saying, like, it serves this purpose of like, he's actually pathetic without this creature, he's going to be overthrown. Cool idea. But yeah, I just would have preferred something else, I guess.
Yeah, I feel the same, actually, to be honest. He was wholly unlikable, which was good.
Easy to dislike, sort of love to hate sort of appeal.
Exactly. And if it was something, because it was obviously going to die at the end, so I'd rather it be something I didn't give a shit about and didn't want to see again. So that kind of worked.
I guess so, unless they they could do something different, couldn't they? They could like not kill them, they could like imprison them, they could send them to like another dimension, or they could do whatever they want.
Yeah.
So yeah, it does kind of depend. But I guess we just have to assess the thing that we've got, which is, and it's Scar King.
Yeah.
I will say this though, and this is, I don't know what you think. I think this is a very deliberate sort of like origin thing, and I've seen rumours that the movie had a code name of being called Origin during one point of its production, so there may be some credence to this, but they've never referred to Kong as King Kong in the MonsterVerse that I can remember. And now Kong has defeated Scar King, and as this is like the reset point, as we've talked about, I feel like they are basically saying now Kong is literally king of the King Kong, so they've kind of like put him in the place where he, you expect him to be. And I don't know that we've ever seen King Kong be the king of other Kongs. He's always the king of like a tribe of people who worship him, So I think, that must be like a deliberate creative choice. But the title implies that he would be Emperor Kong, so I'm sort of like, nah.
I never really thought about the title. Yeah, the New Empire. I guess, is that the Hollow Earth?
What's it really referring to? Yeah. The title, we were naysayers on it when it was and then I think we were naysayers on it when it was X, and then it's like, New Empire. That New Empire is a nice sound. Like, Empire is a, it's maybe a trite word for movies to use, because we all love Empire as a word, I guess, from like Star Wars times or whatever. But like, New Empire, I see that. What's
Grandiose.
that all about? Ultimately, the title bears no meaning to the movie at all.
Completely.
Really.
Actually, I never really thought about that, because the new would suggest, we're going on from this point as well.
I think that's purely a marketing thing. Like, again, like, this is a new beginning. But they could have used the word new in another way. It just, New Empire.
Kingdom. Kingdom would have made more sense.
I thought about that today. Why didn't they call it New Kingdom? I think it's because of Jurassic World, Fallen Kingdom.
Oh, yeah.
And they're like, well, we already have a conflation between Jurassic Park and Godzilla that goes back like more than 30 years now.
I bet that was the original title they came up with. It must have been, right?
But in this movie, we are threatened with the dawn of a new ice age. Coming out the same week as this film, Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, which is about a ghost which threatens the dawn of a new ice age. Frozen Empire. So I'm sure there were people, banging their desks in anger when these, these things all came together.
It's like Deep Impact and Armageddon all over again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Ants and Bugs Life and blah blah blah.
Yeah, exactly.
Shark's Tale and New Finding Nemo.
And was it the Cat Concerto and the Bugs Bunny one? I forgot what the Bugs Bunny one's called now. If
I recall correctly, Bugs Bunny won the Oscar, but it was like this clearly like took the idea from a Tom and Jerry one, which was already like 4 or 5 years old at that point.
I think the case, they didn't just get dismissed because they couldn't prove it either way. Like something like that. And
I mean, I used to have like my hands were on this knowledge like 15 years ago, but now I couldn't.
I really, Cat Concerto is my favorite. I think that's the best one. but the Bugs Bunny one is so funny.
Yeah, the dynamic. Yeah, I can recall having this conversation in the better part of 20 years ago. Like, the Cat Concerto is obviously like
We've just been having the same conversation for 20 years.
No.
But yeah, Cat Concerto, that's the one. We're getting off track. Anyway, so something I really did like about this film was it wasn't really it's not the point of the film, but they made efforts to kind of bring it in. Was there was a kind of I think there was a message in there.
Was the message parenting?
No.
Okay.
No, well, okay. So I feel like it's I mean in a sense yes, but I feel like
I'll make my case for this after you've made your point.
Okay, so I think it's like a theme of like belonging, and I find that quite interesting because it goes to show how you can create family without having blood ties. And I think that's really important because so many people will be like, friends will come and go, but family's forever. And it's like, well, not everyone has a family who loves them or that they love. And this whole idea of, they mention it in the film anyway, like the cultural displacement that Gia was experiencing. And like, if you have a cultural heritage different to the one that your environment, the one you're growing up in, that's hard. That's hard for people. So to actually achieve that sense of belonging, is something I think a lot of people can take for granted. And I liked that they highlighted it in this film. And like, because you see it with Gia and Eileen, and you see it with Kong and Suko as well. Those two stories were parallel in that way. Suko was essentially surrogate Gia for Kong, and vice versa.
And Suko was brainwashed by his his slave master, and Kong did some very quick deprogramming to set him back on the right track. So, hats off to Kong there.
Yeah,
I think you're spot on. Like the obviously the overt like textual message is belonging, because Kong is looking to belong, and Gia as well. Like that's obviously what the film is like about. I saw some parenting stuff in it because like Eileen is obviously Gia's mother figure, and then you have Kong with like the mini Kong thing. It's like, So like you've seen the parallel in the belonging sense, but I think you could also, if you want to, be like, they're both parents of these children who aren't actually their children. They're adopting them, and so there was like a thing there, but it was one and the same.
That worked for me. I liked that. So because I would say, as far as MonsterVerse movies go, there's never really been any kind of metaphorical point, really. I suppose you could say King of the Monsters, the effect that humanity's having on the planet. So
nature fighting back, isn't it?
That's the whole thing, and that's the only film I think so far in the entire series that's tried to make a point until this one, and I think this was a good one. So I really appreciated that, and I think they spot on. I like that.
I think Versus makes a good point of like monsters fighting, and that's
that's a very good point.
That's very deep to me. I do think that
very personal.
King of the Monsters does, I think there is like nature versus mankind thing, which is like very, Godzilla's done this 1,000 times over. That basically is Godzilla, isn't it? Effectively, in a way, to one extent, or at least that's the Western's perspective. If you go back to '98, I think that's very much like, we're messing with nature. But I think you're right. This one has its own idea. We're going to talk about belonging. How can we, they use the tools at their disposal so well, with Kong being a loner inside this new environment. Yeah. Well, it's big. It's as big as the whole Earth. So no doubt he's going to find something, and he finds his surrogate family or whatever. And it's like, yeah.
And I think at this point now in the timeline of things, I think they're able to like dig a bit deeper and actually explore some themes now. They don't have to adhere to certain kind of certain things that are expected of them. I feel like they can just not do what they want, but there's a lot more freedom now. They're established, so they can actually explore this kind of stuff.
Well, it's interesting because I think maybe even in Skull Island you see a bit of this, where they have diverged from a purely ideological message, where most of Godzilla movies have some sort of like, nuclear war is bad, or respect nature. That sort of ideological message is common and welcomed. Shin Godzilla's got a similar thing, all that stuff. And here it's like we're getting something that's a bit more character based and not necessarily like widely conceptual, which is, it's refreshing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
I want to touch on the Mini Kong just quickly.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So I'm going to refer to this character as Mini Kong, because you keep saying that Mini Kong's got like a proper name.
Suko
never gets said, does it, in the movie?
No, this is me Googling. I never would have known otherwise.
But they say Mini Kong, so I'm going to call him Mini Kong.
Mini Kong, okay, fine.
My point is that in the marketing, they show Suko a little bit, and it would be very easy to think, oh, this is coming off the back of your Baby Yoda. You know, this is what's going on at the moment. We've had a whole history of movies copying each other in various senses, like, you know, Minions and movies having versions of Minions was a long thing I could talk about. And now we've had Baby Yoda in The Mandalorian. We're getting little babies in stuff. And I thought that Suko Mini Kong would just be that. But actually, when you watch the movie, Suko has like a nice little character arc. He's a bit of a prick from the beginning. I was surprised, they're not just doing the cute merchandise excuse, you know, the merchandise opportunity, which this could be, or maybe there probably is merch you can buy that's cute, to be fair. But yeah, they didn't just go like, oh, we're going to do our version of Baby Yoda from Mandalorian, except with Kong. They could have been so easy for them to just do it a direct copy.
Yeah,
and I appreciated like, no, actually, this little guy's got a little bit of his own, where he's going to realise that, you know, he doesn't have to be a prick. Basically,
yeah.
You know, he tries to get Kong killed a few times and realizes, oh, actually, Kong's he's not a threat to me.
Yeah,
And I like that because it could have been so saccharine and like, oh, he's cute, isn't he? It's
exactly.
Cute baby, and that's kind of what I was expecting.
I think they did that with his look more than anything else, but not with his character. So
specifically, the look in the shots that are in the trailer, that you do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Most of all, but then I think for the rest of the movie, he's actually kind of ugly.
I wasn't a big fan of the way he looked. Yeah, at any point, I'll be honest.
I think if he returns in a sequel, we're going to see him become an adolescent. Because I think we've talked about this before, haven't we? That Kong, he's an old guy, maybe not going to be around forever, and they could do the passing of a torch thing if they set up Suko well. Yeah, they could new Kongify, you know, this guy.
Because he's already starting to look a bit older now. He's kind of he's more beardy and it's a bit more grey.
The sort of beard look I really like on
Same, Kong. Yeah, it looks really cool.
He's losing his teeth, you know, he's got a weird bionic arm. Yeah.
Okay, so the music for this is by Tom Holkenborg, maybe that's how it's pronounced, who goes by Junkie XL. And also by Antonio Di Iorio. I think that's how you pronounce it. So I was maybe a bit too critical of the score in the last movie, that because Junkie XL he did that one as well. I felt it was a little. It didn't fit the film for me. I don't think. I mean, I'm not going to discredit him as an artist.
This is for the last movie.
This is the last movie. For the last movie. So I'm not going to discredit him as, you know, as an artist, because he's very, very, very good. Very good at what he does. You know, I'm not
prolific as well.
Yeah, very skilled, very talented. Very good. But yeah, for a Godzilla movie, I was just like, oh, it doesn't. In my head, it doesn't quite match. But in this movie, I feel it actually had a bit more personality to it, which was appreciated. It kind of had that sort of, you know, 80s synth pop flavor at points, which I think gave the film a bit more character as well. So I did enjoy that, but still one thing that was missing was having themes. And I don't know, it feels like it's missing. It may be because I expect them based on the previous 30 movies.
Well, there has been some established, you know, ideas, I guess.
Exactly. So I feel like that's still missing, and I do commend them for like not having to adhere to certain things. And it's like, well, we could just make new music. We don't have to keep doing old music. But then if you're going to do that, you need some strong themes. And for example, when Mothra appeared, there was like, it basically sounded like a stripped down and rearranged version of the Mothra theme.
Right.
And it wasn't quite the same, and it was slower. And I was like, well, it sounds Mothra-y, but it's, you know, it doesn't have that same personality and that same impact. You know, it's not that distinguishable. And I just want to hear some themes. I want something I can hum. You know,
when are we going to get to the fireworks factory?
Yeah, I felt even better than the previous movie, but I still feel like we're you can do it, Junkie XL. You can do it, please. Just
I think there were a couple of moments where when Godzilla was on screen, they did go quite hard on his melodic theme, but it stood out to me as he was the one getting that treatment and other characters did not.
Agreed.
And I'm going to be casting an aspersion. Was it a Toho mandate that they use, like Godzilla's got this theme? And if that mandate didn't exist for like Kong and the other characters, like maybe they just didn't.
But they didn't use a Godzilla theme.
But they do use it. Is it's a recognizable.
It's big and lumbering like a Godzilla theme, but it's not the same.
Right? Maybe I'm misremembering. But they definitely.
Maybe I'm misremembering actually. So you could be right. I could be right. I'm not entirely sure. But I mean, maybe that's the issue.
Either way, when Godzilla turned up on screen, they played a recognizable piece of music for him on two separate occasions that I can recall. So there is a theme there.
Oh yeah.
Where its origins lie, I don't know, but they gave Godzilla a theme for sure, and I think it was used very, very well. And that's what it stood out to me because, like as you say, I don't think anybody else had, at least not in the melodic sense, had a theme anywhere near as strong. I'm sure they do have like little themes and motifs running through the score that do mean Kong's on screen.
Yeah.
G is on screen. I'm certain they do, but they just don't stand out as much as the Godzilla one, which is so much more bombastic and almost like, I don't know if this was just the IMAX screening, because IMAX is renowned for its amazing sound system, and I've had great experiences with IMAX in the past, so I'm not saying it's unanimously bad, but on our screening I did feel that all of the sound was a bit muddy. It all kind of merged and blended together in a way that I was like, it's not so refined, sound effects or music. I'd maybe just been the cinema we were in, which I wouldn't really expect to be criticising, but I did feel like it's a bit noisy. It doesn't really feel so graceful.
You know how I knew it was noisy? Was because I was surrounded by people eating popcorn and I couldn't hear them. Now, you know me and eating noises. That's a huge problem for me, and this is why
I didn't eat any popcorn.
Oh, thank you.
Very respectful.
I appreciate it. But I would have been able to hear you anyway. So you could have had both bags.
I've been to IMAX screenings for Marvel movies where there's been literal cheering during the film, which personally on those occasions I welcomed, and I could not. It was indistinguishable from the sound of the movie because it's so loud and it's so dynamic, it's so well balanced. In this, it did just feel like it's very loud. It wasn't like, at the start of the IMAX screening, they play that like countdown from 10 to 1 or whatever it is, being like, this is IMAX, and they have the little twinkly surround sound so you can go, there's speakers everywhere. And in other screens I've been to, that really like gives me goosebumps, like, I'm surrounded by sound. But right from the off, when they played that IMAX logo, I was just like, doesn't sound quite right. And
there was something off there. Because like I was going to say, like I don't go to the cinema because I know, like if it's a popular film or if it's just come out, I won't go because I know that I won't be able to actually be in there hearing the eating noises. And I've left movies before because of it. This is my own issue, I'm not blaming other people for eating food. Obviously, people want to eat and they need to eat, but it's a struggle for me. But do they need to? Do they actually need to? But the fact that I could, I could sit through this and surrounded by popcorn and be absolutely fine. I was like, this is loud. This is just loud.
It just was, and I don't actually. Yeah, I don't want to just flat out criticize the movie or the cinema because until I see this movie again. Couldn't say for sure. Yeah. Couldn't say for sure. But yeah.
It was interesting.
Your overall, though, your points I agree with. That it didn't have a standout sound design, whereas Godzilla 2014, we know that was almost the best thing about it, if not the best thing about it. The sound design in Godzilla 2014 is very much like, this is how you do it, guys. This is a totally different kind of movie, even though it's the same franchise. Like, it's not got the same tone. It's going to be way more bombastic, but they haven't taken when they played the Godzilla Roar. There's a scene at the beginning of the movie where Godzilla is stamping around in Rome, really fun scene, but he roars, and I immediately thought it sounded like they'd just taken a sample from 14 of what is in that movie. That's a really pinnacle, we've built this moment. Yeah. And even though it's the start of the film, I think we can now do that right at the beginning because we're like 5 movies into the series, do it right at the start. But he roars, and it just felt so matter of fact, like, Godzilla roars. Yeah. Here's and I'm like, no, I want to, even though I've seen this 1,000 times and we are very much established in what Godzilla is, I want to it's been 3 years since the last film. I want to get back into it, like blow my eardrums out with a good roar.
Yeah.
And it just felt like they didn't really take advantage of it in that opening scene with Godzilla, which was otherwise really probably the best Godzilla scene actually in the whole film, was the roam part right at the very beginning.
Yeah. There's something about the dynamics and the mix just wasn't quite right.
Yeah.
But yeah, it could have been the cinema. We don't know. But yeah,
I think it probably was the cinema. But even cinematically, they didn't really make a lot of that moment of the roar, even like with the choreography of the cinematography rather and that. So it's a little thing. Like, it goes back to what you said about Godzilla being a tertiary element. Just like it feels almost like they've become a bit too comfortable, a bit too familiar with the big G.
Yeah,
and we want to always feel like he's important. That's what's fun about it. So it did feel a little bit like there was a couple of missed opportunities there.
Yeah, I think they kind of, you're right. I think they are getting comfortable, and I think that's evidenced by the fact that had him kind of curl up for a sleep in the Colosseum, which was cute and funny.
I like that because they are sort of like other MonsterVerse movies have done this very poorly.
They're showing that they're living with him, right?
Exactly. It's like, oh, these guys are actually around. I mean, when they had this little crew of at the end of King of the Monsters. For whatever reason, like a bunch of kaijus appear, like, oh, there's like a crab one and there's a woolly mammoth, and I'm just like, what is all this about? And it's never mentioned ever again until now, I guess. And it's like, oh yeah, like it actually feels like, yeah, he's about. And I think Godzilla using the Rome Colosseum as his nest is like great. I like that.
Yeah, I did too. Yeah, I suppose that's the trade-off. But you can still have an impactful Godzilla and do that stuff.
Well, I think the thing they tried to do was him changing form, because they did this whole thing where he eats this snake character, it absorbs its pink energy and comes out with a completely different anatomy. Really, he's much more 98 Zilla shaped by the end than he is the fat, chubby 2014 Godzilla that got criticised in Japan back when the Gareth Edwards movie came out. They literally change his athleticism. Becomes much more athletic. I think he's spry, he's thin, he's got like longer legs, he's more nimble. I think they did it's a really great idea for them to be like, no, as these movies go on, we're going to make more and more. We need Godzilla to actually change to keep it fresh. They did it. And then, the actual fight scene that follows on from that metamorphosis doesn't actually do much with it, which is annoying. But the idea I appreciated. Yeah. It just wasn't actually like nothing happened. It's like looks cool now. He's got new spikes. Yeah, he's lost a few pounds. Good for you. But yeah, and it didn't really come to much. So it's like the idea was there, but the execution was not so much. Yeah,
agreed. Just actually touching on the music again, just thinking about it, like you're saying how this is more of a MonsterVerse overall thing, really, not related specifically to this film. But 2014, like you said, had that strong sound design, that strong musical presence,
eerie and creepy.
It nailed that.
Moody.
And then for King of the Monsters, you had very big bombastic themes. You had and you had the actual themes as well, which was obviously appreciated.
Yeah. When Godzilla got rejuvenated by eating a nuclear bomb, you got the theme, didn't you?
Yeah, exactly. And then you got Mothra's theme and all that. And then for Kong Skull Island, that was also a completely different flavor, and like the score and obviously the soundtrack as well, the choices of songs to use. But even the score by itself, I really liked, and it fit the film perfectly. And that also set a mood. And I feel like they'd been doing it really well. And then for just the last couple, it feels different, and I guess it just kind of goes into the background
a little bit.
Yeah.
It's not important ultimately in a lot of scenes, other than the Godzilla ones. Didn't feel like it was like it wasn't important. And I do feel like, I'm a bit cynical about this, and I think it's something I'm just gonna have to get used to. But whenever I see or hear pop songs and found music used in movies, it always feels like they are like Guardians of the Galaxy-ified. It's like, oh yeah, Guardians of the Galaxy did this so well back in 2014, and since then there's been like a sort of, it's always been done, like Tarantino movies always use found music and pop songs and stuff from different eras, regardless of the era the movie's set in and all of that. But the sort of soundtrack isms that is still sort of this movie. It's just the way they trigger the music feels like, oh, you're doing the Guardians thing.
Completely.
I'm kind of over it personally.
I agree, and I've not even seen Guardians of the Galaxy. I think where Tarantino's different is that the choices of music they fit the mood of the film, and it's very carefully selected. It's not like, oh, here's a 60s song or whatever. It's something that it'll either sound like it's composed for the movie or it's actually in the movie, like diegetic. And like that's a skill in itself.
It's a thing. It's become a thing, and it's a certain way of using found music and pop songs that, you know, is getting a bit tired.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I will admit I kind of eye rolled a bit at that kind of stuff, and because it is so prevalent now in the way that it's being done.
It's the way it's done. Yeah.
So when we came out of the screening, we both started. We were talking about something in general. I can't remember exactly what it was, but we almost started talking about the visual effects in this movie. But then we stopped ourselves because we're like, okay, we'll save it for this.
True.
So. Yeah, I mean, let's talk about it now.
Do not ask me to remember what I was going to say.
No, I'm not going to ask you to remember what it was because I literally can't remember. But
talk about it in a general sense.
Yeah. So I mean, I for one, I was grateful for the amount of kaiju screen time we had. There was over 60 minutes of it. So awesome. That's so fucking good.
That's 40. That's about 40 minutes of Kong.
Yeah. But I feel like there was maybe a bit of a sacrificing quality to achieve.
Oh, the actual effects overall maybe weren't.
Yeah,
that's good.
And the first thing I noticed was actually very early on in the movie, like when those creatures were chasing Kong, and he was like, "Oh," in a last ditch attempt to kind of scare them away, he like broke one of them above himself to cover himself in their blood, and he's like. Because it makes him look insane, so they're too scared to fight him.
I think it was like a story thing. You were supposed to think they were chasing him, but then it turned out, no, I'm hunting you. That was what was going on there.
Okay,
so like,
well,
because he led them into like a hole. I think that he'd made like a trap for them on purpose. He knew he was going to take them that way. So he sort of was like, "Oh, I'm gonna lead you this way. You're chasing me, aren't you? Oh no, actually, I'm going to kill you and eat you." And that was sort of like, I think.
Was that it?
I think so. I don't know that it was that well executed. I felt in the movie, I was like, oh, I kind of see what you're trying to say, but like, you know, you're having your cake and eating it too by having him be afraid and also being a hunter. What is he doing right now?
I think that was to establish that he has traps set up for when he's in a difficult position.
In a bind. I guess you could say he led them that way because the trap was there, not because he was hunting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be that. I liked seeing that Kong makes traps. That was cool.
That was cool, actually.
Kong's like kind of got some smartness. And that was cool.
Yeah, I thought we were going to maybe see a bit more of that. Maybe that would have been a bit overdone if they just kept doing that stuff. But no, it was cool. But yeah, so when he broke open the thing and the blood went all over him, I was like, that doesn't look that great. And I feel like it was a bit of a step down compared to all the previous movies. I mean, I wouldn't have even expected it to look like that in the 2014 movie. And here we are 10 years later, and I was like, that's not looking the way that I would like it to look.
That's what we were saying to each other on the way home, was that visual effects are still very nice to look at, but they have not progressed much in the last 20 years.
No.
And it's to do with a kind of innovation/crunch issue on special effects artists that, you know, movie studios are not really giving them the room to innovate the way they perhaps should. So yeah, but also I would imagine the effects budget was reduced from the previous film because they went so hard on like versus. This has to make, you know, this is going to re-establish the franchise, and then it released in the pandemic and didn't make as much money.
Yeah.
So maybe they did spend a bit less on the effects here,
and
there's also
a lot more to do
of them.
Yeah. Exactly. So I think they were really up against it. Still looked great. Still really enjoyed it, but yeah, it was noticeable, which was
it was
a bit of a shame.
And I think that you see it most in the lack of wide shots that I mentioned earlier on. It's that you get a lot of close-ups, a lot of details, a lot, a punch is being thrown, or like, you know, that's cool, but like you rarely get a big like, oh, here's all of, you know, Rio or all of Cairo, and here are where the monsters are in relation to each other. It's all very tight and close and a bit claustrophobic almost, which is odd when the characters who are fighting are literally like as big as the pyramids of Giza or whatever. So yeah, it felt a bit overly constrictive, which might have been a budget thing, maybe. I don't know.
It could have been. Yeah, I saw comments of people saying that they missed the sense of scale that a little bit, previous movies have, and I was like, that's absolutely right, because I mean it makes sense in terms of this in terms of these movies, like when they go to the Hollow Earth, that's their stomping ground, literally. So everything is scaled.
They don't look as big.
Yeah, everything's scaled to them. So to them, that's normal. And that makes sense. But where it really kind of took me out and I realized how small everything felt because of that was like when they went to the enslavement camp that Scar King was running, there was those 3 heads on sticks of other Kongs. And I was like, they look like just regular heads on sticks. And I was like, oh, that doesn't feel like it was horrible and it was threatening. It achieved that, but it didn't feel like I was there looking up at these 3 giant heads on these huge sticks. It felt like just 3 heads on sticks.
You almost needed one of the humans to be along for the ride with Kong, or just for it to be...
Yeah, completely.
I mean, I've kind of felt the same way when they did the fight scenes in Egypt and Rio towards the end. It's a slightly different thing, but I just didn't feel like the locations meant anything to those fights.
I thought that as well. I was like, yeah, okay, it's kind of fun seeing them smash a pyramid, but I was like, why, other than the fact it's a known location?
Exactly.
Yeah.
When they had the fight in Hong Kong at the end of Versus, all of the neon and the nightscape of it and the way they fight through the buildings, you could tell it's a generic city, and how much does the real place actually look like this anyway? But the fact is, like, the environment, which is a city that we can use for scale, means something to the fight scene.
Yeah.
When they fight in Rio at the end of New Empire, it's like they could be literally anywhere.
It's a beach.
Not even really in a city. Like, it's just kind of doesn't really feel like meaningful. I'm waiting for the point where I imagine that if they came to a point where they were like, oh, this is the last MonsterVerse movie, that's when they pull the trigger on Tokyo and say, okay, we're going to do that now. Or, a New York or somewhere. It's like, we're going to do one of the big ones. We're not going to do, a small place. I mean, you could make an argument for the Chinese audience again on the Hong Kong thing, which again, I don't have an issue with. I think that's cool.
It doesn't sound like you have an issue with it, Graham. Not at all.
I'm noting it. Noting is different from complaining. I think that's a shame with New Empire, which is like, if the Hollow Earth, as you say, has no particular personality in a lot of the locations, really. And it's just like a cave with some big monsters. The cave is also big. Did they feel big? No. Then they go to Rio, and it's like, well, this should be the point where we're at least reminded how big they are. And it's like, they kind of doesn't make a difference at all.
I would say Rio is probably the only point where I did feel there was some sense of scale. But even that wasn't that strong. And it was still shot high. It was when Scar King was looking down on the people running on the beach. It was still kind of looking down. And it was still like, it made the people look tiny.
But not him look big.
Not him look big. Yeah. So
yeah, there's a bit where he has his tooth knocked out in the Rio fight scene, which is fun, and the tooth lands near some people and hits a car or something. It's like, that's cool, but like, again, it's like it's not enough. It's one shot out of a fight scene that's a few minutes long, and it is, it's just not that interesting, the shots they've chosen. I've said this earlier in the podcast, I don't want to go over and over on it, but
we may have skipped over it. I can't really remember.
No, I mean, this is what I've said is just in Versus, especially that boat's fight scene on the ocean, it is one of the all-time greats. And with this, I know that's a high bar that they've set for themselves. I'm not expecting it to be in the same league every single time, but the step down is much, much more than I expected, because it just feels like you're seeing a lot of, when you watch a movie with real human beings, and Batman Begins gets criticised for this a lot, where it's like, maybe they didn't have the time they needed to choreograph these fights, and they film a lot of close-ups of just random punching, and you sort of build it in your brain rather than seeing it on screen. It's not The Matrix, it's just like a chaotic thing, And to me, like Versus is close to that balletic, we know exactly what's happening every second, The Matrix style of fight scenes where everything is clear as day. New Empire is much more close to that sort of like, oh, it's a brawl in an alley, we don't know what's happening, Batman Begins style. And they changed course on Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises. Those fight scenes are a much different style from Begins, because they did get criticised for not really being able to tell what was going on in those movies, in the first movie, sorry. And I feel like there is exactly that issue in especially the climactic fight of New Empire. I'm just like, what's going on? I don't know. Like, they're fighting, and it wasn't the most impressive part of the film. It was a shame. It was. There was a lot of fighting, and it all kind of blurred, I think. Because I mean, I'm trying to think of the actual fights that you had. Yeah, you had Scylla fighting Godzilla. That was cool. Yeah, that was I think the best.
Actually, I think the best ones were basically the Godzilla ones. So you had Scylla, fighting in Rome. So that was great. Tiamat under the water. I really liked seeing how Tiamat moved, like really quickly.
Very short though.
Very short. But that was cool.
Yeah.
But, it was short. And then you had Kong fighting a lot of monkeys.
In a dark cave.
It just seemed to keep happening, and that's what seemed to happen until you get to like the
big one,
the Cairo one, which was the best one, I think.
But also there was the zero G stuff.
Then there's the zero G stuff, which you were
floundered.
not so hot on.
I wanted to be. That was the thing. I mean, this is the one element of the movie where I had a pre-existing expectation from the previous film. I was like, at some point they're going to do that. It's too good not to. A fight in low gravity, and because they basically, they somehow turned the gravity off completely for a few seconds or whatever. I don't care. It became like meaningless. It's like, now they're all just sort of floating around in a completely sort of uncontrolled way, and they're sort of bouncing into each other. And it's just like, no, it wasn't worth doing. And I was like, they could have had some really cool stuff where like one character is really adept in low gravity because it's their domain, and Kong and Godzilla are here just like, we are not. That's your middle of the movie fight scene where the heroes lose, sort of thing, and it didn't work at all because even Scar King and his like ape cronies were like, "Ooh, I don't know what's going on."
Yeah,
it was just a bit like, why are you doing this? This has no bearing on anything. Because as soon as the zero G ended, they left and continued the fight on the surface in Rio, and it's like, well, that little bit where they had zero gravity was like, didn't change anything, didn't make any impact on anything at all. And then you've thrown away the idea for a future movie. We've seen it now, and it didn't really
unless they want to go into space and make it bigger. But even then, like you say, we've seen it.
I don't know if they're going to do Space Godzilla in the MonsterVerse.
Probably
but,
not.
Maybe.
We'll see.
Another 10 years' time.
But like also at that point, that was also a confusing story moment for me because I was like, why are they turning off the gravity?
That's exactly what I was saying. Like, because it's so overly basic and silly, you end up being like, hold on, have I missed something? And actually, no.
Yeah.
You've not missed anything. And because you spend that time thinking, what am I looking for? It's like you're looking for like a thing that doesn't exist.
And then that means I'm just not even really looking at the fight. I'm not taking any of it in. And
it wasn't
chaotic.
Yeah, it was like they could have cut that. Literally, they could have cut that. And the plot idea was that it was delaying the monsters from getting to the surface, and they can't get to that hole now.
That's the bit I didn't get because surely they can get to the hole now because they can float up to it.
Yeah, why would that stop them?
Yeah,
and it doesn't anyway. Ultimately,
yeah. So I didn't really.
So
understand
what is
that.
the point? What is the point?
So
yeah,
that happened.
It's weird. Yeah, that the movie was like, I enjoyed this. It really was fun. I think I would recommend it for MonsterVerse fans completely. But the fights are not the draw. It's more to do with like a bit of character development and just like a nice way to spend 2 hours with some cool visuals. But like, it's not like, King. The Versus movie was like, that's great. That's what you're looking for.
Yeah.
I don't know if they'll be able to get back to that, and then you can't do it again. That's why they kind of need, just going back to our previous point about Scar King being underwhelming, they need to have created a villain kaiju now. I think that in a movie or two's time they fight and it's like, now we're getting to it, Thanos style effectively.
Yeah.
They don't really have that element. It's like, they've created this weird kaiju that they couldn't really fully defeat the last time, so if they fight again, no. And they could have done like only Kong fights him in this one, and we get the Kong Godzilla team up a couple of movies down the road or something like that, So these are just ideas that they could have done, but
yeah. I mean, because it seems like there are bigger threats in the Hollow Earth. I mean, like for example, when Suga and Kong were going to the camp. Actually, speaking of that camp, what were they doing? Just moving stones around? What was he getting them to do?
They were just moving.
Literally, it's like, okay, move this stone.
This is the thing. He's like Scar King and his slaves have been entrapped by Godzilla tens of millions of years ago
to move stones about,
and they've just been moving stones around. It's like they've not built a city or anything.
Yeah, like if they were building something, some structure or something.
Plus, why are they trapped? Kong just like wandered into the little base.
Yeah,
they're not trapped.
I'm guessing Scar King. I mean, he's got his cronies for a start, but then he's also...
Was it supposed to be that he'd recently been dug out, and that's why they were moving the stones? The stones were removing his tomb.
Maybe.
It had taken like 100 million years or something to do that. Like,
it could have been a recent thing.
If he's inside the tomb, how is he able to control the slaves? Like,
well, that's the thing. So, like, I think he's using the crystal, not on them, but with Shimo, to keep them in check.
They should have done it like he's trapped inside a crystal. and the crystal breaks, and that's how he gets out. Not like he's been
but that'd be too much like Ghidorah in King of the Monsters, frozen in ice.
Whatever. I mean, speaking of that, when Godzilla went into the ice to, habitate this new power, they obviously made the ice look exactly like it does in the original King Kong versus Godzilla movie, where Godzilla comes out of the ice. The shape of the ice that he was in was the same shape. I think that was a deliberate reference to be like, Godzilla's inside the ice, wink wink, like the ice. Remember the ice from that old movie? This is what it looked like. And I was like, oh cool, yeah, I like that. And I would have just been like, put Scar King in some fucking ice. It's fine. Do you not see this visual reference?
I thought it was meant. It's weird because I thought because of the colouring, it sort of looked similar to the crystally looking structures in the Hollow Earth. I was like, is there some parallel there? And that's the angle I was coming at. And I don't think that's right because they didn't have any connection whatsoever.
Oh. So... Next time you see the movie, look at the shape of that ice.
I will do.
Cast your mind back.
Yep.
I think this is when when I was saying, it's Manila in the previous one. This is my version of that now.
Okay, so what was your favourite moment?
It probably is seeing Godzilla sleeping inside the Colosseum,
Yeah.
Because I love this idea that he's like an actual creature that has like habits and is around, and it's like, I like appreciating, this is something we've covered many times on Monster Island Radio, that like he's just an animal that like does animal things, and you can perceive him as like a violent creature who's, I know that in this film they literally said he's being called by an SOS signal, so clearly there is more to it in this, but I just like Godzilla doing Godzilla things, and Godzilla things doesn't just mean blowing fire breath or whatever. He's having a little nap, and I was like, that was actually But I mean, overall, I just like that this movie, regardless of how well they did it, they just decided we're going to take this story forward and we're going to build some lore and we're going to, I liked that. But in terms of my favourite moment, seeing Godzilla repetitively go to sleep in the Colosseum, I was like, nice.
Yeah,
it's cool.
So that was good. For me, it was actually the Cairo fight. Because...
Oh, really?
Yeah, it made me laugh for a couple of reasons. There was, when... Obviously, Kong's face when he's trying to get Godzilla to understand what he wants him to do, come back into the portal and help me, and Godzilla's just not getting it. And he's like, oh my God, this is not working. I thought it was really, really funny.
Yes.
And then the fight that ensued was kind of like Showa era style, with the kind of like almost like wrestling moves.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
because didn't Godzilla like suplex him or something?
Yeah. And that cracked me up, so...
And that's where they're kind of showing, Godzilla's like got a new board, guys.
Yeah. So
it's almost actually, not to speak over you too much, but like it's like they're saying Kong is the old one and Godzilla's like, he's youthful again, he's new.
Absolutely, yeah, he didn't feel like a big old lumbering thing at all. So.
No, they're kind of pointing out that difference between them. It's like Godzilla's got like a grey-haired old beard and Godzilla's like, I'm fine, I've just got rejuvenated. I ate a snake.
Yeah. So I enjoyed that, and then Mothra came back and was basically told them off, which is what happens in other other Showa movies as well. So I
think that's a bit of that cool. In the next one we're going to watch on the Showa.
Yeah, there is. Maybe. There is. Yeah. So it reminded me of that, and I was like, that's a nice callback without being silly or on the nose. It was it worked within the movie as well. So it was good fun. I really liked that. So your comments withstanding, from a direction point of view, I agree with you on the fights, but I still really enjoyed that. So, but honorable mentions when Kong was slapping the other monkeys with Zuko. That was great. I really enjoyed that.
That's where I was like, they're not doing Baby Yoda. That they're not going full on cute. This before I saw the movie, I was like, they'll make Baby Kong look really cute, and at a certain point, he will be picked up and thrown. For sure, and it will be like that. Oh no! It will be like a don't moment. But it was the opposite. It was like, no, this guy's a little bastard, and we're gonna chuck him. I thought, okay, well, immediately showing like, it's not that. It's not Baby Yoda.
Yeah,
I like Baby Yoda. Just doesn't side.
Okay,
but, it's cool.
I just realised I started making a point, and then we got sidetracked. But I was gonna say, down in the Hollow Earth, when I was saying they were going towards that enslavement camp, there were bigger threats in the Hollow Earth, and like. That bridge they walked across was a Titan that was hundreds of times bigger than even Kong was. So it's like
it was like a massive ancient Godzilla type thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, I don't know if it was like a snake or something.
Because maybe they're saying like the Godzilla that entombed Scar King and his buddies was like a former Godzilla, a much larger one.
I don't know what it was, but I mean, like you're saying, like there are other threats in there, whether it's a Godzilla thing, whether it's something else. So, you know, they've opened the doors there, so we can see what happens.
Imagine they could do a movie where there's a big creature and maybe like Godzilla does something and he like grows bigger, and that would be cool.
That would be cool.
I also really like the bit where in the ancient carvings on the wall they referred to Godzilla as the one who ate a star. And I thought that's a cool little.
Same.
That was cool.
That was cool. I
just like that. That was a good bit of writing.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah.
I'm surprised you've not mentioned this yet, and I'm a little disappointed you haven't.
Oh God, check my notes.
The magic red juice.
What happened? There was juice? She drank juice?
No one drank it, but there was some sort of magical red liquid when they were turning off the gravity, and they poured it into that pool of whatever.
That red stuff.
Was
it red?
Yeah.
I didn't register that as magic juice.
And it was like one of those big cauldron-y type things as well. And I was like, oh look, the magic berries are back.
I didn't. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought you'd have been all over that.
I've become desensitized to magic juice. Yeah. After saying there was going to be magic juice in Rodan and there wasn't.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, well. You just have to rewatch it.
That's not in my notes. It just says, Trevor from EastEnders, lol.
Okay, so quiz time.
Quiz time for me.
Quiz time for you.
I was going to make you a quiz.
Oh, you were?
It was consciously on my mind, and then at some point I just didn't do it. So
okay.
Sorry.
Still going to spring it on me at some point.
Someday.
Oh dear. Okay, so 4 questions.
Okay.
Let's see. Right, so let's see if you can get more than 2. I'm hoping this is going to be the one.
Please play the classic explosion sound effect when I get one wrong.
That would be the new buzzer. Okay, so 4 questions. Are you ready, actually? Are you ready for this?
As ever.
Okay, good. Right, question 1. The name Shimo is derived from a Japanese word meaning A, frost, B, queen, or C, oracle.
You're trying to trick me.
Oh, am I? Am I?
Yeah, one way or the other. Let's say Queen.
No!
No, it was Frost.
Yeah, it's Frost.
Well, you got me, see? Good.
I got you.
Just second guessing myself.
Oh,
First question, how yes, I see what you're up to.
Okay.
You'll live to regret this.
Hard luck. Okay, question 2. Here we go. This will be the one.
I feel like I've just exploded.
Where was the Titan Tiamat's first appearance in the MonsterVerse?
In the MonsterVerse, not this movie.
Mm-hmm. So,
for goodness sake.
was it A, Godzilla Dominion, the tie-in comic for Godzilla vs.
Yes,
Kong?
of course I remember.
If you remembered me discussing it, maybe you'll know whether...
I do, I literally do.
Oh, okay. B, Monarch, Legacy of Monsters, the TV show. Or
it's called the TV show in the title.
Yeah. No, it's not. Or C, Godzilla, King of the Monsters 2021 novelization.
Oh. I am going to give a hopeful answer. I would actually like it if they were from that TV show, because it'd be cool to see them again, I guess. And I've not watched it yet, so I could see them in the show. If they're in the show, are they in the show?
No.
In the comic book.
It's the comic book.
Yeah.
So I was actually...
Kablooey.
Huh?
Kablooey.
So I was actually quite pleased because, we'd discussed the comics before and how, none of it really kind of seems that related to the movie. So this is actually one from the comic book. It showed up in a movie. So
I don't recall you ever specifically name dropping this guy though, if I'm being honest. I'll go back and listen to what we talked about.
I can't remember either. I think I did, but I could be wrong.
I like the good kaiju. R.I.P.
Yeah, it's a shame really, isn't it? Okay. So no, you can't get more than 2 now. So that's a shame for you, really.
Just stop now.
Okay, so question 3. What's the fan name for the Titan who steals Kong's food in the beginning? Is it A, Minilla, B, Doug, or C, Herb?
Herb.
Wrong! For fuck's sake.
Am I not a good proper fan? I'm not a true fan.
I cast the out of the podcast. So it's it's Doug. It's B, Doug.
Yeah.
So that's the Titan we see in Godzilla vs. Kong that everyone suspected might be mini Godzilla.
No, I knew you were trying to get me. I knew you were trying to get me to say. I didn't say it.
Okay, so
I still was wrong.
Question 4. Let's see. This could be the one where you get 1.
I'm being chastised for getting your quiz questions wrong. This is terrible.
Okay. Question 4.
Go on. Yeah.
Where do we see a reference to Monster Island within this movie?
Oh yeah, I remember.
Oh,
I think
I
I spotted it at the time.
Here we go.
I was like,
Here we go.
Yeah, they finally that's what our thing is that we made up originally.
Yes. Actually, it's a peninsula. Is it A, one of Bernie's podcast episodes? Is it B, the map screen in the Monarch command room? Or C, one of the drawings on the wall in Gia's classroom?
I'm certain I read it as text. Nobody says the words. I saw it on a monitor. So I think it's one of the. It's Bernie. It's Bernie related.
Yes!
Yay!
Yay! You got 1.
Because maybe somebody's a fan and they were like, no, obviously not. But maybe
it's got to be right.
Yeah, because they were like, well, there's no other reason that they would use those words, Monster Island, is there? Literally.
So yeah. 1 out of 4. Well done. I'm glad you didn't get none. So, also there was one of the other episode titles was about Planet X. I don't know if you remember the Zillions.
I believe they are referenced in Godzilla Destroy All Monsters Melee, the video game for GameCube.
Oh yeah, they must be the little UFOs floating around, right?
I believe so.
Oh, there you go. And
they make an appearance. They actually speak to you at the start of the game.
There you go. And they're in Final Wars. That's the aliens from Final Wars. And they're in Invasion of the Astro Monster as well. So, okay, so 1 out of 4. Better than 0 out of 4.
Have I ever got 0?
No, you've always got at least 1. I think you may have got more than 2 at some point, but not that I remember.
Well, last quiz had 5 questions, so I've had less chances to get more than 2 this time.
That's true. Okay.
Come on.
I'm sorry. I'm really
you could
sorry.
come another question. I'll ask you a question.
Oh, go on. Here we go. So wait, if I get it wrong, then you get an extra point and you get back to 2.
Precisely.
Yeah.
How many minutes long is the New Empire movie? So I don't want 1 hour and X number of minutes. I want the minutes total. And you got to guess. I'm not giving you multiple choice.
Let me think, because I know that the screening that we went to I think it was actually slightly shorter.
Shorter
than the runtime that was given to us.
Oh, I see.
I believe. I could be wrong. I
told you how long it was a few days ago when we were planning our evening out together.
Okay, so my initial...
Don't look through your messages.
No, I'm not. I'm not. So the screen time we were given was, you want it in minutes, so it'd be 115 minutes, but I actually think it's 105.
So are you giving that's your official answer?
My answer is 105.
Wrong.
Oh!
115.
Oh! God damn it.
Oh, so bittersweet. But yeah, that's going to be the quality of the quiz I would give you, so look forward to that in a future episode.
So I just got to memorize all the times. Got it.
You're always complaining about movie lengths, so I assume you know them all.
Good point. Okay, you're back up to 2. Congrats. The status quo has been maintained.
Middle of the road. That's what my wife always said.
Okay, so overall thoughts on the movie, if it wasn't clear already. Why don't you tell me your overall thoughts?
other than that sound that you made, it is honestly a great deal of fun. It's just not like a new classic. I think it's harmed by coming after Godzilla vs. Kong, which really exceeded expectations for me personally. I think for you as well. So, should it be criticised for that? I think yes. So yeah, it just hasn't quite lived up to the standard they set for themselves, which is not the worst, but yeah, it does feel quite throwaway. And I think if they continue the MonsterVerse, it might just be seen as like, oh, that's the one where they set up that Kong meets other Kongs, and there's nothing more to it than that, really. I think for these movies to have a lot of rewatchability, you've got to nail that action. And although there's a couple of cool moments, there's no one prolonged action sequence which really makes it, that special. So yeah, it is good fun, but nothing more than that, really.
Yeah, I agree. Very exposition heavy, like I said. And like everything there, plot related, was just to facilitate the fights, which it was kind of constant, but not. There was, like you say, no particular kind of standout moments. So it's like, yeah. So. Yeah, I don't know. It's I did enjoy it. I really did enjoy it.
Same.
I feel like they found their footing with Godzilla vs. Kong, and this film actually feels connected, which is nice.
Definitely,
I think that's the one of its biggest strengths is this feels like, to me, this feels like Godzilla vs. Kong 2 more than it feels like MonsterVerse 5.
Yes, definitely.
Which is no bad thing.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, yeah. So it's still a good film, but it's just because of Godzilla's lack of presence. Really, for me, it doesn't really make the best Godzilla film, which is the biggest detractor for me, more than any of the other issues we've talked about. Doesn't mean it's a bad film. Doesn't mean I didn't enjoy it. It's just not really a Godzilla film. But like I said before, I can see myself rewatching this a lot more, and because I did enjoy it. So yeah, and also for the record, I still think King of the Monsters is my favorite so far. I think GVK is still the best one, but King of the Monsters is still my fave thus far. But yeah, yeah, I know you don't like it, so that's where we diverge.
I don't like it. I don't believe you.
No, it is. It genuinely is. So, Kaiju Corner. Now,
it's Kaiju Corner time.
It's Kaiju Corner time. Now, I had something planned, and I was really looking forward to doing it. And it was the listeners maybe not, but it was the the tie-in comic for the New Empire called The Hunted. I pre-ordered it. I still haven't got it.
Oh,
so I've got nothing to talk about. So thanks, Amazon.
Is it prequel, sequel, concurrent storytelling?
I don't know. I didn't want to read anything about it. I think it's a prequel. I'm assuming it will be, because it was released before the movie.
And yet not arrived.
It's not arrived. So
Amazon.
Yeah.
Amazon Prime becomes more and more a shadow for myself with every passing day.
It's so bad, and we were talking about this just a couple of weeks ago, and we're like, we just don't use Amazon now we use it for Prime, but not for delivery of stuff. It's not good. So
it's the way they sneakily just edge themselves away from next day delivery on so many things. It's just like, what's we doing here? What are we doing? This is the whole point of it. Anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Not good. So no comic. I'm disappointed. Lame. And after seeing Tiamat in this, and that was a character, a titan from the comics, I was a bit more like, okay, they're actually willing to dig into the comics a bit now. So I was looking forward to this, but obviously not. So yeah,
boo-hoo.
That's that. So I really hope you are not going to bring up basketball again for Kaiju Corner today. I'm praying.
I feel bad now.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to 3 on the trot. Basketball Kaiju Corner.
Here we go.
it's related to this movie though. That's why I'm bringing it up. Not because it's basketball, but because it's specifically the New Empire. A few weeks back, they've been advertising this Godzilla X Kong thing like mad on the NBA, just in general. But a few weeks back, it was the All-Star Weekend, which is, a special event in the NBA calendar. And they did this fun thing where when they went to a commercial break, just before they cut, they actually played the Godzilla roar like over the broadcast. I don't know if it was in the stadium. I doubt it. But it was just fun the way the commentators were talking, and they kind of half got interrupted by Godzilla's roar, and they went, "Oh, Godzilla's got something to say," or something like that.
Is that what the commentators said?
Yeah, they literally referenced it, and then it cut to the trailer, which I then dutifully didn't watch. Oh no, actually, it was cut from my video on demand version. So I didn't actually see it, but ironically, because I wasn't watching it live because I was asleep when it was live. But yeah, it's not a huge basketball thing as such. But yeah, it was cool to see them kind of try to integrate the ad into like the event, because All-Star Weekend is all about kind of odd events like that, like odd little moments, fun things. And it was like, oh yeah, like, they could just play the trailer and not do anything. And it's just a little like, oh, Godzilla's here. It felt like, Godzilla's a big deal as a character, I think, in pop culture. I think people respect that and appreciate that and enjoy that. And they used, the character in a really fun way. I thought that was cool. And
yeah. That's a fun way. Like, I really don't like defending advertising, to be honest. But when it can be playful like that, it's, you can actually enjoy something like that. I like it, because like you say, like, I mean, when I was in New York before, I watched a hockey game on TV, and it really took me by surprise how, like, it just seemed to me anyway that it was just like almost mid-game. Like, they'd show a replay, obviously, but then they'd be like, oh yeah, this replay was brought to you by whatever. I was like, whoa, that is so... It was really jarring to me and so in your face. I just couldn't get past it. So
it varies. I mean, in
so
the NBA,
it can be subtle and it can be fun. Yeah, if you're gonna be in your face about it, do it in a fun way, not in an obnoxious way like that.
Yeah, totally. It's appropriate to this brand. So yeah, it was a cool way to do it, and I think it continues this sort of strange kind of connection between like Godzilla and
it keeps happening.
The sport of basketball. It's peculiar. And,
it's really strange.
Can't promise I won't bring you more in the future.
Honest,
that's a small one.
Yeah, okay. That's a good one. To be honest, I'm actually looking forward to hearing more, because there's bound to be more, I'm guessing. The link seems to be getting stronger. So, okay, yeah, no, that's a nice one. Short but sweet.
Yeah, it's a small one, and it's related to this specific movie.
Yeah.
There's also this thing I'm going to bring up in a future episode. Like, somebody went on a date with Godzilla recently on a reality TV show or something. Like,
oh yeah,
I don't know if you saw that. Like, somebody was like, "It's my dream to go on a date with Godzilla," and the show made it happen. And it's like,
yeah,
okay,
you see that clear.
We're gonna get to that next time.
Where's my date with Mothra?
Or maybe, I don't know.
Hopefully soon. Someone make my wishes come true. Okay, yeah, short but sweet, lovely. I just want to actually say to everyone, like, sorry, this is a bit of a choppy episode. Normally, I like to prepare a bit better for these recordings, but we're coming hot off the heels of watching the film, so
it's reactionary.
It's a bit more reactionary. So sorry if we jump around a lot. Hopefully, you still managed to follow whatever we were talking about. But yes, yeah. Anything else, Graham?
Just want to point out, right, that there's no post credits on this movie. Just if anybody's wondering, everybody's like not gonna see it yet, and they were like, "Oh, was there post credits? Did I miss something?" Like, no post credits. When the credits start, you can leave, unless you want to read the names, which obviously that's nice if you do. Yeah, but yeah, there's nothing after the credits. There's no teaser, so. Yeah,
they seem to kind of drop that thing now, which I appreciate. It becomes a bit like an encore at a gig. It's like, oh yeah, we know, yeah, we get it. We'll clap until you come back on. So
it was fun when it started, and it was an actual like surprise. Like, oh, I'm been treated because I waited.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, they're not doing it, so don't worry about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, in terms of anything else to add, no, I think so. Nothing.
Yeah, we've rambled enough, I guess.
Yeah. I got a question though.
Oh, is this another quiz?
No. But we haven't watched the Monarch TV show, and there are other Godzilla TV shows which, whether we watched them or not, we've not really ever covered an episodic thing on this podcast. So if people are listening and they're thinking, oh my god, when are they going to talk about Kurt Russell and his other, the son Russell, whatever he's called, he's also in it, deal with Godzilla, the Monarch TV show. Russell. Yeah. Do people want to hear it like as a one episode? Do you want to hear like blow by blow? Obviously, it's something that we'll decide on between ourselves, but it's just good to know what people want. Do you want like something over, the general discussion, or step by step, like episode by episode? Just good to know, how should we cover these things? Because we often wonder, how do we cover a TV show? We've never tackled it.
Exactly. I was thinking about this before we started recording. Actually, I thought the exact same thing, and I'd rather hear from people what they want to hear, because we do this so people can listen, not just because we love our own voices, which we do, but just it's for that honey voice person there. We do it for you guys. So if there's something, if there's a way you'd like to hear it, let us know. So and then we'll figure something out. So yes.
You can contact us. Just look for Monster Island Radio on your social media platform of choice.
Yep.
And you can respond to us there.
Exactly. Okay, so I guess we should go and watch -1 now and Monarch.
Waiting for the physical release of -1.
Whenever that will be. Okay. Until the next one, everyone. Bye-bye. Bye.